Hi everyone, my name is Josh Reed, and I'm just here today to talk to you about mark recapture work that we've done and sort of incorporating dead recoveries into that as another approach for estimating abundance and demographic parameters. This is work done with Leslie New, Peter Corcoran, and Rob Harcourt, and we'll also present some preliminary findings from this work. So most people are aware of what mark recapture is. So it's a useful tool to estimate demographic parameters when we have these large capture histories from populations. And there's particular models such as the Jolly Sabre model, which also are useful for estimating abundance for populations. So for species like the North Atlantic right whale, where we have more than 40 years of data, these methods are really good for estimating the demographic parameters. As well as having the individual capture histories for these individuals, we also have a lot of additional information. So information such as the age class of the individual, information on the sex of the individual, but we also have information on the known deaths. So that's referred to as recovery, and this can help us inform survival estimates for the population. So recovery is useful when we find dead individuals. It's used largely in studies of birds, so it's often referred to as band recovery. As individuals can be located dead outside of the study area, it gives sort of more information to the model rather than keeping it solely to one geographic location. And it helps provide information on survival, and it can also inform us on the sort of recovery probability, so how likely we are to find dead individuals from the population. So using a combination method of sort of traditional mark recapture methods, as well as these dead recovery models in a model that's known as a mark recapture recovery, we can provide, or hopefully provide, a more unbiased estimate for what survival is for these populations. So for the study that I'll be presenting today, we're using a multi-state framework and fitting a Bayesian mark recapture recovery model. For this, we're just focusing mainly on female right whales, as females are the most important for survival of the species, and we're also sort of investigating how certain parameters will change based upon the age class of the individuals. So I'll go into that a bit more later on. And we also hope to provide an estimate for what the abundance is for the female right whales. So when we get our mark recapture history, we generally have this state process, so the states that the individuals are in that we're actually interested in. So we might have individuals that have not yet entered the population. We might have them in different age classes within the study area. They might have left the study area, permanently emigrated. In different age classes, we may have found them dead, and depending on what age class they're in, or they may have just died. So individuals can move through these states over time based upon our biological understanding of how these states work. But underlying these sort of state process is the observational process. So this is what we actually see when we get the mark recapture history. So many times we just don't see the individual before it's entered into the capture history. We don't see it. But then we see it in a particular observation that links it back to a state. So if it's seen as a calf, we know that it must be a calf inside. The same as if it's seen as a juvenile, it must be a juvenile inside. So it moves through these states when we actually know and we can see it, but we also have these periods where we don't see it. So the model looks at how individuals can move through the states, what the state is in the previous time period, what the state is in the next time period, and assigns a probability of that individual being in a particular state that's most likely given the transitions that the individual can make. And then we have recovered individuals move on to dead individuals, and they can no longer be seen because we can't have individuals coming back into the population once they've died. So for this analysis, we have a number of parameters that we're looking at. So we have survival, the recapture probability, so how likely we are to recapture the individuals again in a particular year, the recovery probability, the site fidelity probability, so how likely an individual is to stay within sort of the study area, the transitional probability, so that is how likely individuals are to transition from being a juvenile into being an adult. We also have this entry probability, so when individuals haven't been captured yet, how likely they are to be captured in the next time period. And along with that, we have the initial state. So when they're first captured, are they likely to be a calf? Are they likely to be an adult? And then we're still working on the state assignment probability. So that's for unknown aged individuals. So how likely they are to be of a particular age class. And so we're still currently working on that, and any ideas or feedback would be great on that. So for these models, we have two matrices. So the first one is the state transition matrix. So these are the biological states that we're actually interested in. This is what state the individual's in at a particular time. And these are the states that the individual's in at the next time period. And sort of these are the probabilities that individuals can move into those states given particular parameters. So if an individual enters the population, depending what state the individual enters at, we have S, where the individual survives, F, the fidelity, and we have R, the recovery probability. So these move through. We have, when individuals are recovered or they're already dead, they always remain dead because we can't have them re-entering the population. And then we have our observation matrix. So this is where we link these states that we're actually interested in to the observations that we actually make from the data. So many of these, the states are determined by the observation. So if an individual is seen as a calf, we know that it's a calf. We have some states where the individual may be sighted in that particular state, and also where they may not be sighted, but they may be assigned to that state. So this also gives us an understanding of what our recapture probability is based upon if we're likely to see that individual or we're likely to not see that individual, but it's still within that state. So there's currently some mark recapture models out there for right whales. This one differs in a couple of different ways. So we're using the age classes as designed by the North Atlantic Right Whale Consortium. So we have our calves in the first year of life, 0 years old, juveniles from 1 year old to 8 years old, adults when they're 9 or older, or if they've calved in the previous year. We're also including the dead recovery of individuals, and we're using data all the way back from 1977 to help inform certain parameters within the model. And we're hoping to incorporate this unknown states, so assigning individuals of unknown age classes into a particular age class. So just going into the preliminary results. So we have survival here. This is a measure of true survival as we're accounting for permanent immigration. So you can see for adults sort of in this pinkish color and juveniles in the blue, the survival is relatively high with little variability. But for calves, there's a lot more variability and it changes quite a bit through the year just based upon how likely we are to recover that calf or resite that calf in the following years. So the recapture probability, we only have adults and juveniles because we're always going to see a calf if we see a calf because it's in their first year of life. And if they transition on into juveniles, it'll account for the juvenile recapture probability. So we can see here that it's relatively high for most years from 2006. We see a slight dip beginning sort of in 2013 to about 2016, and then it increases again. Though there is some variation between the two age classes. And recovery probability is quite variable due to the small sample sizes that we have for recovered individuals. It makes it quite hard to sort of determine the probability of recapturing an individual in a given age class, as you can see by sort of the large credible intervals here. Though this information does help inform the survival estimates from this population. And we also have our abundance estimates from the model. So in the blue is the results from the model. In the pinkish color is the minimum number alive. We're still working through some sort of bugs in the code for this. It's still sort of underestimating the abundance, but we can see that it's showing a similar trend in what the abundance should be. So once we get that sorted, that should be working all good. So what we show for this is that we know for small populations it's really important to provide the most accurate estimate for what survival and what abundance is likely to be, to see how this may change through the years, and in certain years how it might be different. So in these results we have shown that survival is lower than in other estimates for microcapture models for North Atlantic right whales. And we're hoping that the inclusion of this sort of information from the dead recoveries has the potential to help improve the survival estimates for the species. And just highlighting the importance of using all the available data. So rather than just using the live recaptures, incorporating this dead recovery can help inform the parameters as well. So I'd just like to thank my collaborators, who are my supervisors for my PhD, as well as the North Atlantic Right Whale Consortium for the use of the data and the help they've given along the way. And thank you all for watching.